you all for coming tonight. As we get started, the one thing I really wanted to not forget was the bond vote is November 4th. So can't leave tonight without being prepared to vote about a month from now. Tonight's agenda, a couple of housekeeping items first. There are exits at both the front and back of the room. Bathrooms on this floor and the floor below. The slideshow that I have is just under 50 slides. Should take 25 minutes or so. We'll talk about the team that's involved. We'll go through some of the existing town garage photos. We'll talk about the proposed town garage, the overall cost and how it has evolved over time. What the cost impact will be on a household in the town of Warren. We'll talk about some of the frequently asked questions that we've heard up till today, and then I'll take your questions at the end. So if you do have questions as I'm speaking, just try to keep your head and we'll answer everything that you have afterwards. We'll start with the project committee and all the people that are involved in the project. There's actually many more, but Rebecca Campbell, Andrew Lombard, Jim Sanford, Devin Klein, and Willa Ben. And they've all been part of the people helping to make the decisions for how this building gets designed and how it evolves to get to where we are today. The design team, I am Steve Roy from Wheeler Lanphier Architects. John Lamoth from Wheeler Lanphier is not here tonight, but he has also been pretty involved. Dan Powell from VHB has handled civil information. We also have a team of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection engineers that are all part of the design. Curtis Chase from CES, Brad Park, and Tim Hardy doing structural design. And the construction team already introduced with Bert and Chris from Rearc Construction. I just want to point out too that we have construction managers on board. They're here to help us make the right decisions for the long term. Their task, their job is to hire the construction subcontractors. So all of that subcontract work still gets bid. Local contractors that are interested. We've had a coffee and donuts session just a week ago to meet with some prospective contractors in the area. Why does Warren need a new town garage? If you aren't familiar, I'm going to go through a few photos of some of the conditions. We do also have a few photos in the back. If afterwards you haven't seen these clearly enough or want to talk more, there are some photos in the back. Primarily, it's about safety, a lack of space, and just the inefficiencies that come with some of those issues. This is an aerial view. This is School Road, as you probably know. But multiple buildings, multiple shipping containers, a separate trailer as the office. It's all just very scattered. With really, even if you add all the space up, it's just an inadequate amount of space to do the job. They've done it marvelously for years, but it's really at its end.
Steve, I wanted to tell you, something's reverbing over here. Does somebody have volume on it? Can you maybe check and see if Kevin can hear you? Sure. Maybe is there volume coming out of your computer, Jeff? Great, thank you. Sorry to interrupt, Steve.
Okay. So what we have in this slide, this is the what acts as the office. This is just a temporary trailer. We have one building with 3 doors, stores some of the equipment. The second building, which houses additional equipment and all their supplies, as much as we fit. And then additional, Conex boxes or storage containers that just have as much equipment as they can fit inside them, but there's also things stored on top, and kind of anywhere Andrew can find a space to put something, there is something. There's also equipment. This is under cover, but it's out. And this is just one example, but there are things that would be better served inside. It would last longer. You spend a lot of money on equipment. That equipment will last longer if it's kept in conditions that are much better than the outdoors. If you take a look inside one of their buildings, I think this room sums it up for me. This is their toilet room. They have a sink over here. There's wrenches hanging behind it. There's a spool of wire hanging here. There's tools. There's electrical boxes. They're trying to make as much as they can out of very little space. And that one takes the cake for me. A lot of the photos I have today, they don't have all of their equipment inside because they're out using it when I'm taking these photos. But you start to see that when there's actually something parked here, and there's something parked behind it, and there's tires there because there's no other place to put them, and there's layers of things that are just placed there because there's no other place to put them. But it makes it really inefficient to go get something if you need it back. So there's always this sort of inefficiency built in of how do I store this? Where can I better place it, and how do I get to the things I need now? This is just another example where these are blocking and tire chains and things that are just sort of layered. And this doesn't show a vehicle out in front, but you can see the tire tracks. So there's just you actually store things. There's no room between, and it just becomes difficult. One thing that this is inside one of the storage containers. There are several of these containers, but they're just using every inch for storing materials. In this case, traffic cones and signs. This is a good example of just how limited the actual garage space is. This vehicle with the plow on it is really right up against that wall. There's no way to walk around it. Limited space between things, tire chains here, equipment on the other side of the truck, but just a narrow passageway between. Again, this is just one truck and the garage is full, but you start to see that to get through there, you're kind of doing the little maneuvers to get around the blades, and just not very safe. This is an example of how the existing buildings are they're past their useful life. They're leaking water. It's corroding this entire back wall. We either put a lot of money into fixing something, or it just continues to deteriorate. The better choice would be to replace it at this time. Here's an example too, where there's only 2 doors in this building, but this door is definitely taking a beating, and really the metal is sort of peeled back. You can see the insulation, the broken wood. It's just a building that's served its purpose and is ready for replacement. This one kind of points to the back of that storage building. Obviously, the water issues are happening on the roof above. All the water is getting inside these areas. Things are just corroding and past their useful life. They're worn out. They're inefficient. Again, just time for replacement. So, what is being proposed? We have Route 100 and Von Braun Road, and the existing pathway that leads to what is now an existing material storage site. It has in the past been used for extraction material. It's just currently used for placing material. But the red outline indicates basically the area. I think this is a 78-acre parcel. We're using a few of the acres that are already disturbed. So there's minimal tree cutting or change to anything that hasn't been touched already in the past. This is a hand sketch of kind of the conceptual process as we developed it. We did have a different version to get into this iteration, but we're essentially using the roadway that's there now, but improving it, widening it, making it safer for the trucks and two-way traffic. At the top, we'll have the salt shed and the garage itself, and simply just organized files, material, and outdoor storage areas. And this is one of Dan Kyle's drawings. It just starts to show the engineering portion of the design, how the grading works. We have a stormwater collection basin at the bottom of the driveway and at the top of the driveway, which serves to handle all the stormwater from the site itself. More we'll talk about soon. The floor plan, we've worked on multiple iterations with the committee, through and landed on this one that serves their needs. The green areas here, and there are hard copies, a few different hard copies if you want to take a closer look later. Just some break and office space, toilet rooms, some areas to store their personal goods. The blue areas are all places to store their equipment. We're showing some locations for vehicles. Those can be changed. There's not many hard walls. It's a pretty wide open space, other than a wash bay, which is dedicated over here. That is simply a room that will allow them to hose down their trucks on the inside. It'll help the trucks last longer and stay clean and salt freeze compared to trying to deal with it elsewhere. In this back corner, we have some storage, also some of the necessary electrical rooms, mechanical spaces. One of the nice elements of this is a pretty large mezzanine, almost 1,900 square feet of mezzanine space, accessible by a stair. They can also lift things up with equipment to get things there. But all those things that are in Connex boxes right now and hard to get to can now be stored inside, easier to get to, more organized. Overall, much easier to get to. These are the elevations of the building. It's a very simple, straightforward box. There's really not a lot of splash to it. The front is where all the overhead doors are. There's 6 of them total on this side. We have one door which will help navigate trucks deeper into the facility on the west. We are anticipating that if the project will be solar ready, so if there are extra funds or in the future, solar panels can be put on the roof, but they are not included in the budgets that we'll talk about currently. And this is an overall 3-dimensional view. The driveway itself comes up in this corner. We have a few parking spaces and basically a layout space for vehicles to be parked outside or backed in. Salt shed over in this corner here. And these are just, room for piles, and that can be arranged as needed. And this is just an exterior view, showing basically the office portion would be this first floor corner. Everything else is simply garage. How much will it cost? I know that's always an important question. When we started, our first estimate was $15 million. When we picked ourselves off the floor, we said, well, what can we do to get it lower? And we worked on, as you can see, this $15 million that we were putting a new driveway. It was going to be a lower pitch. It was going to be navigating a different route to get us to a different part of the site. It was just too complicated, too expensive. Looking back at other options, estimate number 2 was, well, what can we do with the existing grade? Got it down to about $12 million on the second estimate. It's still too much. We needed to get it lower. So the steps that we took beyond that point were to simplify and reduce the site work. So really trying to balance out the amount of cut and fill on the site so that we're not taking material off and we're not bringing material in. We value engineered the building design. It's just, it's a very simple, straightforward box, trying to be as efficient as we can with what we have. Not a lot of extra wall areas. It's pretty efficient. And we worked with the construction management team to help us make some of these decisions. What can we do to save money here, save money there? How do we get there? This is where we came into the project. They took our designs, made some suggestions. We made some edits throughout the process, and they developed a detailed cost estimate based on the design that we had worked out together. When you break down just that cost estimate, the actual building construction cost, making the box itself, is about $5.77 million. The site work to widen the driveway, to put the utilities in, to do all the grading at the top, stormwater ponds, that's about $1.6 million of work. Throw in a salt shed, it's about $460,000. We have a few different options that we're considering, some a little bit less than that, some a little bit more. We're also looking at things like state grants to try to bring that cost down. Knowing the cost of things these days and how costs have escalated, point out that all of these costs that I've given you so far are in dollars today. The project will be built ideally starting in April. So the cost of buying things now will be slightly different than the cost of April. So some of this escalation cost of $709,000 is the difference between now and April. And we've included a pretty, hopefully, conservative amount for tariffs, though hard to tell these days. So $709,000 in sort of what if contingency money for escalation of the tariff. Soft costs and additional 5% town contingency is another $1 million. And those soft costs are all the permitting fees, the design costs for all the people that I mentioned earlier, including the design, civil engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, all the things that we need to get our permits. That comes down to the $1 million. And if we add all that information up, the bottom line of the estimate is $9.6 million. If we take out those contingencies, it's 8.173 million. So the project will land somewhere between those numbers. It will depend on what the tariffs end up being, how much things escalate between now and then, if we run into anything that's unexpected and has to use contingency. So how does that translate into your taxes? The impact of the bond would equal 1.24 cents for $100,000 of bond expense. Based on a 30-year bond, the estimate is it would raise 6.94 cents to your tax rate. And what that means in actual dollars is if you have a home value of, it's the appraised value, not necessarily the home value. But if your home value is $300,000, just going to pick in the middle, $300,000, your yearly cost would be $208, which is about 57 cents a day. And I want to point out that all of these numbers here are based on a $10 million bond, which is higher than the $9.6 million estimate, and could be significantly higher if we could get it in the eights. So these are considered what we would consider to be the worst case scenario. And our efforts will be entirely on how do we keep that number as low as possible. As we get into some of these questions, how is the proposed site chosen? The town already owns this piece of land, so there's not the cost to purchase another piece of land. The site is already used for material storage, so these same town trucks that are using it now will use it in the future. For years, they've been actively searching for viable alternatives, and really this is the best option that is available and makes the most sense. We also believe it has an improved, it will improve safety within the village because it's going to remove trucks that are coming out of School Road. And as we compare the current conditions that they're working with, this is taken from one of their vehicles, looking to the left and to the right as they try to exit School Street. And you have, kind of a limited distance, and here you have a building halfway block, and it's not the best condition. He's halfway out on the road before he's getting a really good view. When we look at the bottom of Von Braun Road, you can see it has actually excellent sight line distances, both to the left and to the right, in this case for hundreds of feet. So there's a safety improvement in that alone. What permits are needed? At the top, we have a completed permit, which is the Warren Development Review Board, so we have a local permit for the project. Dan Howe is doing most of the permitting work. He has submitted, and it is under review, the state operational stormwater permit, the state construction general stormwater permit, and the state wastewater permit. In progress are the wetlands permits, highway access permit, and Act 250. So there are a lot of permits related to this. There's a lot of, even just the Act 250, it's technically one sort of umbrella of permitting, but it includes a great deal of all aspects of the project about its energy efficiency and its use of resources. It's very all-encompassing. One good thing about being a municipal project is the Act 250 permit fees have been waived as a municipal project, which is a significant savings. And then once the final building design is completed, there'll be a permit for the Division of Fire Safety just to construct the building itself. If approved, when would it be built? This is kind of a snapshot of where we are in an upcoming time frame here. This red line that's vertical is today, 7th. We will have a second meeting just like this on October 30th. The bond vote will be November 4th. And if and when that bond is successful, we will work on finishing the design. Right now we're at a design development stage. We'll move into construction documents and work through that for a couple of months over the winter. In January, we'll go out to bid to those local subcontractors. And that is a fantastic time to bid. You will definitely see the best pricing by using this schedule. If this were to be delayed, you would not only have the cost of escalation, but you would, if you delayed it 6 months, you'd then be bidding at a less ideal time. So there is always a cost of waiting. This yellow line is sort of showing the permits process. Some of it is started, some of it remains. And if things continue to go well, April 1st would be the start of construction. I'm showing 12 months, so full April following year 2027 is when the building will be completed. What will happen with the old site? Somebody else want to speak to this line?
Sure. Should I sit up here or is here fine? Yeah, I'm comfortable here. Dan Raddock, Warren PC. I'll take a crack at this, and then there are other folks from the PC here, and I hope they'll add to what I have to say. Big picture from the PC standpoint, I would say, the idea of moving the town garage out of the village is among the most consequential. I mean, frankly, the most consequential. It's been, I would say, the dream of the Planning Commission. What can we do to make life in Warren, and particularly Warren Village, improve quality of life? Obviously for the workers there, but also for a vibrant village. And for school children, the idea of moving moving the town garage out from right next to the elementary school and out of the village to a different location has been a dream. To get to the slide itself, way back in 2006, which was before my time on the planning commission, there was a town charrette, townspeople got together, and what the idea that came up, not from a planning commission member, I understand, but actually from maybe some of the folks in this room, was that wouldn't that be a great site for housing? And again, that's been sort of right next to rec fields, right next to the elementary school, housing crisis. That resonates with us as the planning commission, still to this day. If you think about the site, it really has some unique properties. As you can see from the slide, and as you know, it's right next to the elementary school. It's right next to rec fields. It's adjacent to the village, a town-owned land, served by community wastewater. It's just it's a uniquely attractive site for housing. But to be frank, the PC, then it's like, okay, it's a great site for housing. We believe it's a great site for housing. What do you do with that? So we've been having meetings with a range of local and larger developers to think about, well, what kind of housing site should go on it? And there are options from a downstreet model, like you may have seen in Montpelier, or like being built in Waterbury, kind of like a single building, 20 or 30 units of rental housing, like a true affordable housing type development. It's certainly one option. The opinion from other PC members has been, well, maybe that's not the most suitable for Warren. Maybe we're different. We're smaller than Montpelier and Waterbury. And so we talked to folks who are doing local development, including Roots Builders, Matt Root, Shea Brothers. We hope to have others and welcome others. And I think if I was to boil down the message from them, it's like, yeah, this is a really attractive site. And the fact that it's town-owned land served by community wastewater makes it really appealing to a developer. But we don't have a concrete plan yet. At the same time, we do want to maintain an open mind. So what are some other uses besides housing that could go there? And we're open to hearing those ideas. One of the things we've got going on is we have a team of junior engineers from UVM who are interning for the planning commission. And we've said to them, beyond housing, what do you think, what could go there? Include, give us your vision for housing, but don't limit it to housing. What else would be a great use of that site? And one of their preliminary ideas, for example, is a rec center. Hey, maybe that'd be a great idea for a rec center. Okay. What other ideas do you have? So we just want to maintain an open mind and hear different perspectives. As far as sort of practical steps we're taking, of course, before you can do housing, you've got to find out, is it safe to do housing in terms of brownfields or environmental impacts? So we're trying to get state funding to do brownfields and feasibility studies so that we can move from sort of the dream stage to a more practical vision of what do we really want to do. And that brings me to the last point, which is, I think the Planning Commission is really ready to hear from, townspeople. Okay, we have our vision, we think it's great for housing, and we know there's a lot of ways you could do housing there. But what do people in town want to see there? Maybe there are other ideas that will come up that certainly there'll be ideas we haven't thought of. And as far as design, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So we will be opening, in upcoming meetings, we'll start, having an agenda item or come and share your ideas. And we really will love to hear from you. I've spoken beyond what I intended to. I don't know if Jim or anyone else wants to add anything, but that was what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Dan.
And now we're ready for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. That's great. I'm happy to take over from here if you'd like. And, please have a great question for a member of our team, just let us know. Yes, please.
I just want to say I'm appalled on the condition of our town garage. Although it's town, like, you know, I'm just, they're so valuable to the town. And all to see the work conditions that our town is not to get to need in town. Yes, I need you in bigger states, but it is disgusting. We let that get. I'm saying, we, the members of our town, but a road crew, will work in conditions like that. I'm not for the town garage site, the deed originally shaped. The Valley Reporter said that intersection is safe. That's from the police reports. There's skids all the time. We've got photographs of accidents knocking down our town sign, blowing through our neighbors' fences. At the end of West Hill, I observed last spring, someone veered off into the guardrail or this happened again. It is a dangerous intersection. Now, it's town garage in your backyard. But the one appalled on the condition that let the town garage get into, I think that is a dangerous intersection. Unless we can slow down the speed of the 100. Obviously, the V-Trans felt it wasn't a problem, but maybe they didn't have all the information.
I would say to that last point, I think whether V-Trans acknowledge it was a problem or not, they don't have the appetite to correct it. But, you know, just going back to the condition of the buildings, to be honest, I was appalled when I first went in there. I think not a lot of people go into those buildings. That's one of the reasons that I've been so focused on this project. Because when I went in there and I realized what they were doing, I realized it's enough kicking the can down the road, enough trying to, you know, look for a different site. They've been doing that for 17 years. That's kind of why we're here today, because we kept trying not to do make the difficult decisions. And that's exactly how those buildings got to be the way they are. Because we kept trying to say, well, maybe there's a different way to do it. Well, maybe, you know, we don't want to do that. We don't want to upset anybody. Let's see if we can do something else. And all that time goes by, deterioration keeps happening. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, let's see if we can get the town to be willing to put $600,000 into the new building into repairs to a building that's still not going to be out. You know, so it's good money after bad. That's exactly. But I hear you.
I just want to thank all of you because I was here a month ago and this presentation was so improved by the renderings. I think we got a really good feel for what it's going to look like. And I wanted to say, of course, the town has a responsibility to provide an adequate workspace and a functional workspace for its workers. And it is using the word appalling that we are not doing this. If I was going to work for anything, I would feel so demoralized by that space. So I'm really happy to see this up. And I just think it's a long time coming. Good work's been done, so thank you. Yes, please.
Mary Cow, I'm one of the mentors. And a couple things. First, I'd like to thank you for sending it. That was great. I think we got all property on somewhere. And regarding that, I just have a quick question for you. if you could just explain why you choose not to put the bond date on. Because you've got, you know, a lot of information.
It
And you
was
have
absolutely an oversight, Mary. We had so many eyes on it and we missed it.
things
Yeah.
slip through the cracks. It's too bad,
It
because
is.
not all of us.
There is another bill, another one.
Well, yeah, not all of us love to go to QR codes together.
Yeah.
Understood, and we chose to put what we could for information on there instead of, you know, a simple mailer. We may have gotten the one for CDCC that is sort of just a QR code, right? So we're hoping to give people a snapshot.
No, it just seemed funny to me that you had so much information.
Us too.
No, when we normally wouldn't be having.
Our detailed estimator over there pointed that out to us, and we finally got to look at it and it just printed.
Maybe talk to them earlier.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Definitely.
Okay, so, I'd like to go on to another thing, we have discussed, and probably will discuss more. And information that's been provided. And, how much additional traffic, we have to get answers to that, but, I think that one thing that I would like to, ask about this meeting now, it's still a little unclear where we stand in terms of safety of that intersection. And many of us feel that our overall experience is not fairly safe. As we have firsthand experience coming through, see the stigmas you have. Apparently, things are not being reported as much as statements as perhaps should be for accidents. There are also a lot of accidents that are to be unnecessary, where those of us who kind of know that you can't put your phone around. You can't put your turn signal on until after West Hill, because otherwise they think, you know, there are tricks to doing it. But you've got within your sight, if you do that, you are approved for this. It seems that there are things that are within your control that can make it less dangerous. And I'm a little bit surprised to see, we talked about grade last time, and 14% grade of the driveway from the site.
13.
13.
13.
Yeah, it varies. Closer to Route 100, it's flatter, right around 3 or 4, but then it does go up and varies between 13 and 14.
So it appears to me, and I know you're trying to cut corners and save money wherever you can, but it seems to me that what you're creating here is a straight, and the pages aren't numbered, so I can't remember. But the existing is first. And I think the first is sort of, hey, I think they are traffic commons to a degree, and so as trucks go up and down slowly. Mine's a pretty straight shot, and that's probably less, than first, can be effective. And what this appears to me to be is widening it, making it a straight shot, just to shoot it right out into the woman, as opposed to having, taking it out of the site, which might cost you a little bit more, but make it safer.
Yeah, so the thought is to utilize the existing road, as you said. We are widening it from 20 to 24 feet to allow for two-way traffic, but we're holding that southern edge of the road, and we're going to be bumping up to the north. So we aren't making it straight. It's not a straight shot. We're still honoring that existing geometry.
So this isn't an accurate.
No, it's inaccurate. It's not straight the way we have it drawn. It's not a straight shot there.
Close.
Yeah.
And I know, as it stands right now, it's probably. You're on the ground, and look up there, that's the first.
Sorry, Mary, what is your concern?
My concern is the overall traffic safety on Route 100, and it seems to me that there's certain things that are within your control to make the approach from the town garage.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're arguing that if the access road to the garage site is too straight, it will dangerously impact the
I
intersection
think will contribute. Will contribute to that.
because it's,
Shut down.
because it will be an unsafe road because it's straight.
And because the slope, it's not.
But the slope is only 13%, and the town allows for 12 for newly constructed buildings, that's for fire codes.
So you
Right,
disagree
so
with that?
I
So
think
you
we
don't-
think 1%, and the fire department has agreed, it's perfectly tolerable, the road crew themselves say, we already drive that road. During winter, and it isn't unsafe, I think we're providing some opportunities to make it safer by widening it, paving it, and it'd be probably one of the best maintained roads
Yeah.
in the village, because of the use.
So you don't see any problem with
I don't think that the improvements to the access road are going to cause any safety issues, no. Do we have any other questions? Chris, did you have your hand up?
I do, I have a more of a comment, couple
Yeah.
comments on a couple points. My name's Chris Kaplan, worked at Town of Warren, I started working at Town of Warren in 1993. Several years, took a little break, I've been working at Town of Warren for 24 almost. From a personal point of view, speaking to the intersection concerns, I invite everybody in this room to come to the school and Brook Road intersection at 7:15 in the morning, between 7:15 and 8 o'clock in the morning. Hang out there somewhere at that intersection. It's a wonder that there hasn't been a horrendous crash. We come out of there with vehicles that are 40 feet long and you're 16 feet ahead of the driver's seat. And the visibility, as you saw pictures of it, they're great. But my entire snowplow has to be out to the yellow line before I can see past the house. And people come down that hill. I've seen bicycles come down that hill at 45 miles an hour through that bridge. That doesn't allow me a lot of time to grab reverse back. Bicycles don't talk. Cars, all these flashing signs, they don't amount to a beat. They really don't. Coming out of the Bomb Ground Road, there's minimum of a half a mile either direction. It's a totally, you're talking about 2, possibly 3 different intersections there. The accidents that happened to Johansson's house, that happened to the town sign, they have nothing to do with Bomb Ground. Absolutely nothing. I've traveled that road in and out. One of the reasons they want to straighten it a little bit is all of our material now, a good share of our material comes from tractor trailers. If they're going up a 12% grade, the less that they have to do this, the traction is going to be better. The size of the salt shed will reduce how often they have to go up there. I know, the conditions of the garage. In no way am I defending the garage. The town of Warren provides us 75% of our work is done away from the garage. We have beautiful equipment, all really well kept, nice, fairly new equipment, and that's where 75 to 80% of our work happens. We work on dirty, dingy, greasy, oily machines, and that's where they get maintained and tire changing and all that happens in the garage. Yeah. When I started working there in '93, there wasn't even a door on. But I want the town for the equipment that they allow us to operate. It's beautiful. We have wonderful, great equipment, well kept, and heat, air conditioning, radio, the whole night. It's not as bad as it looks from the pictures. I understand that the working conditions could be a lot better, and I agree, but not as bad as some of the pictures. We work with dirt, so there's a lot of on the floor, but that was my piece.
Thank
I
you.
welcome anybody to come in, we're there, this time of year, we're there more. We're starting to get things ready for.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, we have a coffee pot, come on.
Dave, yes, please.
The safety of Route 100 is primarily a state concern. State police are understaffed. Had an accident there at the date. The time was 5:35 a.m. Car went off the road southbound, nowhere near down Bowling Road. And it wasn't discovered until he became conscious and called the EMTs to come at 11 a.m. 2 hours later, they retrieved the car from Bradley Brook Gully, the culvert under the road. Has nothing to do with the traffic and the safety. It's a state issue. The state is undermanned, state police-wise. People drive like they want to, and I don't see how this has any concern with the town garage. I've lived on West Hill, and most of the skid marks are after hours when our town crew is in bed and not when there's snow on the ground. It's frustrating. I heard that crash. It woke me up. That's why I know the time. No one knew what time it happened. It was so loud. It was like a train going off the rails. Because the road derailed. And that's a state concern. And it's just, it's not within the control of the towns. Don't even bring it up as far as the safety of that intersection.
Yes,
Last time when we met, we talked about the energy conservation measures taken on the temporary state building because it's currently public building being very expensive in towns to maintain. So I think it would be helpful if we could share some of that more heat pumps, solar.
Yeah, so the building itself is going to meet the 2024 Vermont code, which is quite progressive in terms of the energy efficiency. Of course, all the lighting will be LED. We do have currently a heat pump system in an effort to avoid as many fossil fuels as we can, since to make an electric-based system, there are going to be some fossil fuels within the project. But the insulation values are quite high, meeting or exceeding the code. It will be prepped for solar panels. So it is going to be an efficient building. With that said, it's going to have, systems that provide for better air quality, and it's a difference. You look at an old building and you say it's very inefficient. Right now, they're just throwing heat at it. They're not really throwing fresh air or anything like that. So there's going to be improvements with the type of air quality that happens within the space, and there is a cost to that, but it's as an efficient box as we can. And it's also a bigger box than what they have. So I can't say it's not going to cost the exact same amount to heat a bigger space that way. But it is as efficient as it can be.
Is there anything you're taking from the old town garage to use?
Just the
generator? Are we moving the generator?
it's good size.
It's not big enough for that.
Gene, please.
Hi, Gene Bono. One, we, the town crew deserves to have a place to work, a good, safe place to work. So I have been disagreements. Definitely need to do this. Glad you're doing it. Oh, right. I'm really confused about the cost. I can look at it, but when I saw the proposal, I went to, and I found a company that does the steel buildings for Costco and Kmart. We priced out a building, which we do, 12,500 square foot building, insulated, 6 doors, windows, and but that building alone was $587,000. And I'm starting at $587,000 and adding systems, heating, all these, I don't see how we got up to 5 million. So then I went to East Montpelier, they built a similar building, a square foot, just like that building. It only has one less bay, it's 10,800 square feet. The whole project, concrete, start, everything was $5 million. So I know we have to do a lot of site work and that's a separate 1.6, but I'd like to know more about building where we're acquiring the product and how it's being installed, because you can go to one, you would steal this company that does those guys, business, and buy a building fully insulated with all that stuff for $500,000 and all the other stuff. I think the building price would be lower, but overall, we need to do it. And I always consider, now everybody likes to look at each project at its own cost, but if you look at, just as a bond notice for $149 million for a tech center, so that's going to add to my tax bill. So this is going to add about 250, maybe more, for 30 years, about $7,000 worth of taxes. The schools just got a paper said that it's going to cost $35 million to fix all their buildings. So I would like, again, as a group of building, see if we can squeeze the costs down and, or like, it would be really appreciated. But again, we need to do it, and I just,
Jean, I'm gonna let our construction management team answer this question, and I would just urge us to keep in mind that when you design a prefab building, it leaves out absolutely everything other than the shell. Right? Absolutely everything. And then I'll let these guys take it from there.
So back to the East Montpelier Town Garage. The Lanfair, that project.
Can everybody hear okay?
It's hard, I'm having trouble here.
If you could stand up for me.
Yes. So, we did get information on the East Montpelier Town Garage from the Lanfair, and the hard cost after bidding was $4.4 million, which worked out to $440 a square foot. We're at $422 a square foot, including site work. And the site work on this is pretty extensive, which is $87 a square foot. So the building is around $335 a square foot. This is a 100-year building where it's, it's not a pre-engineered metal building where you have, exposed vinyl insulation that you see underneath, or like a roof that's got the screw down roofs, or where a roof maybe only good for 25 years. And it's got a metal insulated panel sandwich that's finished on the inside and the outside. Got the mezzanine in there, so we have put up pre-engineered metal building. So if you have some information on pre-engineered metal, we welcome to, if you want to send that to us. Happy to look at it, analyze it, and see how it compares with the quality versus what we price.
I just work for companies that want everything premier. They treat designs like manhole covers. So, cost conscious. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you my card after. Happy to share.
And Jean, and everyone, the cost breakdown that you saw the slide of that very clearly you can't read, is available on the website. So when you go to the town website, you're gonna go to the road crew button, and then there's a list of all of the documents there. And one of those is the cost estimation.
Broken down.
And you, yeah.
I went to look there now. I went to road crew, I didn't see it, so I'm over here.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not ideal the way it's just, but what we've got to work with right now. So.
Chris, please.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. I could also actually, so Steve had mentioned, we are including a number of contingencies in this overall estimate. So as Steve said, that sort of between the 9.6 million and I think it was like 8.17-ish million is the target. So one of the things that we've actually included, as Steve mentioned, we're including a full year of construction from April to April. by design, very deliberately, we're bidding it out to all the regional and local subcontractors at the best time of the year. That first, right after the beginning of the year to get our best pricing, setting up for an April start of construction. Now, we would hope to take that 12 months and compress it, even if we can compress it a month, which is what we would be doing, frankly, after a positive bond vote is when Steve and the rest of the team continue doing the detailed engineering. That allows us to tighten up our numbers and tighten up our overall schedule. So we're always going to be thinking about ways to save money throughout the process between now and the start of construction in April.
Thank you, Chris. Do you answer your question for now, or any other follow-up?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, Rocky.
Yeah, I have two questions and points. The first one being, and I apologize, first off, thank you everyone for coming out, and the atmosphere in this room is something I think we can all be proud of in this town. I've said it before, Mary said it before, the site for this town garage was obtained by the town under certain circumstances. The agreement and understanding was that when the town was done using it for a gravel pit, that it would be utilized for recreational purposes. Once again, and I'm not here to litigate that this evening, but I know there are others that really rubs them the wrong way. Essentially, my take on it is the foundation is suspect, so how can you go forward with that? It's not easy to find a site for the town garage. There are other tools, none of them are pretty. Eminent domain is not a pretty tool, but that is an option. I don't want to go there tonight. But as far as the current town garage, I agree with those of the voice dismay at how long it's been let slide, shall we say. And now there's a sense of urgency. Well, we've got to do this because it's in such bad shape. But you know, people should have been a little more proactive as far as the band-aids. Leave it at that. As far as going out onto Brook Road from School Road, looking uphill, there's a creek out there. And I would suggest cutting that back so there are better visuals.
Good luck. You ever try to cut a tree to tell Warren?
Your safety is my concern.
I appreciate
All
that.
right, and the other thing is, as far as people slowing down, those speed bumps definitely slow people down, and maybe that's what we need to do. The signage is there, but the enforcement, which is passive in speed bumps, I think would be very helpful. And that certainly would slow a bike down, and just about anyone else. And that would be applicable no matter what happens with the fine. I think
They're getting
this where
installed tomorrow, Thursday.
I beg your pardon?
The speed bumps are being installed on Thursday.
Excellent, and again, I suggest cutting those trees for safety reasons. Yeah, I asked at a previous meeting, as far as Mary's concerned for the grade of the road, why can't we take something off the top? And I know it was considered, or I was told it would be considered, so I'll ask the question again. Why can't we take some of the top of that road away so it's not so much of a hill to get to the site?
So the thought to minimize the amount of earthwork was to utilize the existing grade out there. The existing driveway is also surrounded by wetlands, both to the north and to the south. So the more earthwork or the more cut you have in that area, it would result in a bigger disturbance to those wetlands and their buffer zones there, which we're looking to minimize as well. So both from a cost and natural resource perspective, we decided to keep the existing grade after confirming with the fire chief that it's acceptable. And as Devin mentioned too, that site is being utilized today by some of the town traffic, as it's a material storage area.
There is also a water line that travels from the fire pond down through that roadway, so any change to the grade has an effect on how buried that water line is.
Yeah, we have to lower the
So
water
that-
line.
You know, beyond the cost of just changing the grading of the road, there's also the things that it affects elsewhere, so.
So, I'm hearing it could be mitigated without cost,
Yes.
additional cost.
Of both a financial cost and a cost to the wetlands that are surrounding it. And I think what you're pointing out is that due to that water line underneath the road, it could be an astronomical cost.
Fair enough. I think I'm done.
Thank you, Rocky. Yes.
This is gonna be a bit of a curveball question, but speaking of the tax. I know a lot of our neighboring towns have adopted local options tax. And one of the benefits of living in a tourist town is that where we have if the town were to adopt a local options tax, the people who use, are not just the property, the full weight falls not just on the property owners. So you guys have your hands full, I know, beyond your hands are beyond full. But I do think we ought to be talking about, as 32 other towns, including Waterbury and Montpelier, and perhaps some of our neighboring towns in the valley are thinking about this. I think it's something we should be thinking about when you guys have some time. So it's not really a question, I guess.
Yeah.
It was a statement, not a question. My
I think
apologies.
that the general thought is 75% of the costs are borne by visitors, 25% by residents. Yes, Jen?
I know this is a pretty much done deal project. I feel it's a little overkill because it's for 10 employees and the size of it seems a little much. Back in the early 2000s, when we were talking about doing the garage, there were some of us that basically wanted to start replacing the buildings, be it one at a time or something like that. There was also talk of contaminants on the site of the garage. And nothing was done. And the select boards talked about it for years, and we would go and talk about it and all that stuff. Funding was an issue. Brought up the concept of taking the PTO money and start putting it into an account, interest bearing, or invest it, so we'd have money to do projects such as this. But we were told over and over again by our select boards that there was plenty of money in everything budgeted out. The intersection on 100 is a dangerous intersection, as I've said before. I've been almost hit by trucks, a town truck, 3 school buses, and over a dozen cars. 100 going around the village, that is a bypass that's done a long time ago. And yes, we neglected the town garage for way too long. It's like meeting after meeting after meeting. So we just never did anything with it. So you're gonna take a site that I did a video of the school with its parents being at its and for basically 10-20 minutes. Apparently they don't want to put their kids on the school bus. But the intersection on 100 to me is far more dangerous. Plus, as Rocky said, that site wasn't supposed to be for something like this. From time to time again, select boards tend to change things. And I would personally wanted to use existing site. It's always a big debate. I can't remember what it's about. But as far as the 1% tax, which we fought that down before, we get taxed enough in the state as it is. You want to put another 1%. You only want to. There's only so much that the tourists are going to take. Your rooms and meals are 10-9%. And it's just. It's all, and yes, other towns have done it, but yeah, I see what some of the things we've invested in the past, like this tearing down a house that was there and having it green. You know, and then you went out rec centers, you have 3 schools. You have facilities. But we don't use them. So that's all that is.
Yes, Steve.
In regards to taxes, right? So when we pay town taxes, is that based on the CLA or the actual assessed value?
Pardon.
Oh. It's your assessed value. So it is based on the CLA value of the home. Yeah, so that helps collect a lot. And again, 1% tax.
Do you have any other questions? Share thoughts? Yes.
I guess I'd just like to make about the intersection debate. While you have possibly have going around, the speed of traffic coming there is more than double, if not more. So while you do see them coming, they're coming a lot faster. So as far as pulling out, I'm not convinced that that's viable. Coming out of school, where Stanford, we've now reduced the speed by 14 miles. So if you have very small visibility at 14 miles an hour, your impact is going to be a lot less than someone people now stick there. People now go faster than that. It happens really fast. So I just would like to open that can of worms as well and say you have less visibility, but you have a shorter distance with lower speeds. The end result is not creating a wreck.
But the other element of this that we haven't mentioned is that when we move traffic from the Brook Road, School Road entrance, truck traffic from there, you're also cutting down on the number of trips. Those trucks have to go more dangerous and lower sight line, North Main. So it's not just about cutting down on their trips in and out of School Road, but also their trips up North Main onto the road, which, in my opinion, is the most dangerous the part of that. So that's where the accidents have been happening. So we're reducing those trips out of that intersection.
Jim.
Just to be clear, the 14-mile-an-hour figure is came from front of the word store, not on Brook Road. Brook Road traffic, I understand a lot faster.
I see bicycles with you.
Yeah.
Bicycles.
Yeah.
Speed bumps.
They don't care about the blinking sign.
We try to see.
How fast?
The average speed coming down the Brook Road, if you're sitting in the School Road, is 40 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. They go by 2 blinking signs at 40.
Yes, Dave.
Are those speed bumps gonna be taken down from the Green Mountain stage race?
No, they are not. We'll see.
Can I get a speed bump in my house?
Where did my water? Where did the 25-mile-an-hour sign? We love that.
Speed bumps.
That I'm gonna get run over. Neither do I.
We'll talk.
Anybody else? Comments?
Questions? Yes, please, share.
I just want to say thank you for all the work that's been put forward. I'm proud of the project, and I think we have to get behind it and move on. We can't blame the past. Look how long it's taken. We're in a really substantial group of people. I think that's just.
You're here.
Yes, Chris.
I think a lot of the reasons that we're up. Nothing to do with
to think about the future, right? Because what we're building is something that's going to last for generations and generations, and hopefully, like 100 years without a bunch of babies, which is huge. And I know that this board is committed to maintaining our town assets, and it's something we're looking at beyond just the town garage. So we hope to put some plans in place that allow us to be more thoughtful about continued maintenance, so we don't end up in situations. We are a volunteer board, we come and go, and we do what we can. Thank you all so much for being here. Oh, sorry,
That guardrail on the western side of the intersection,
yes,
which,
the intersection of Westville and
Yes.
100.
that was compromised in the spring.
Okay,
Twice, not just once, twice.
that's right, twice.
But had a car run over it,
That's the third time.
that could have been fatality. Now, so the transfer slowly, that traffic doesn't, but,
That should be a bumper sticker.
when is that going to be addressed? Because essentially, it's much more dangerous without a guardrail there.
You know about it.
Well, I understand that.
I think as you saw in the article in the Valley Reporter, we are trying to get V-Trans to pay attention to us.
What actions are going to make?
What did you call us? I called about it. You know what? Thank you very much for letting us know this is a concern. That's the response.
Yeah.
That's from V-Trans. So this select board and this meeting is not the time or place to talk about that. You should be talking to the V-Trans or the governor.
Or the state legislature.
Well, and I'll reiterate, an idea, Patricia, I think, had suggested founding a group that could sort of compile all of the information that you guys have, pictures and accident reports, et cetera, that we are not privy to, and building sort of a task force to work with and discuss with V-Trans. That is absolutely an avenue through which you could try and approach them. I know that from our perspective, we've approached them independently. I've looped VHB in, I've looped our state representative in, education authority. Like, we are trying, and most of that article is the result of an email that I sent saying, hey, we'd really love for you to pay attention to us. Here are the things that are happening around that intersection, please.
Most of the response in the article was, we don't have resources. That's what I.
That's right. That's right. State police, V-Trans.
Yes, Gene.
Just real quick, I can't remember how many years back, probably maybe 10, but V-Trans had redesigned that whole intersection, so they had that in some.
Yeah, they're on their third, I think they said their third geometric orientation. But I agree with you that this is an important conversation and not one that we're focusing on with respect to this project. And I just want to give a huge thank you to our team from Lima.
The people assembled here, did anybody know of anybody else who wanted to come to this meeting, but it was not a good time for it? Because we're wondering whether we should, the next one is scheduled for 5:30 also, we're wondering whether we ought to change the time. Want to make sure that people want to get answers, want to make comments.
I don't know anybody in particular, but if you work at a town.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all so much for coming.